So before we really start delving into the stories, one thing I'd love to ask is just, do you believe in ghosts? Right. Is if I'm a because actually this is something that I find quite a lot actually, that even though we live in an age where like rationalism and materials seem to be sovereign, we actually you meet a lot of people, right? That there seems to be this enduring fascination with ghosts, with the supernatural, and I find it remarkable that even people that I know who like a lot like the protagonists of the story, right? Very anti-superstition, right? They'll say, "But there was that one time, right?" And this is what I think M.R. James does so well, is that through his style of realism, he manages to basically get you to entertain the idea that such a thing could be possible. It's really wonderful the way that he does it.
Oh, I love how you frame that, and I'd love to pick up on that. But no one actually asked me that question before. I think I'm very much a product of modernity, and
Right.
it's hard to believe in something as direct as that. And yet, do I? I had a holiday once in Scotland, and I chose a wonderful remote spot. You know, in the woods with a cabin. The idea was you'd see red squirrels and you'd see deer in the morning, and that was lovely. But the downside was it was so old that you had to go to an outhouse far down a path. And you go down there in the dark of night, and my goodness, did I regret those Friday the 13th viewings, because I was seeing spectres. And you can tell yourself very rationally, there is no one up here. But
Yeah.
you tell yourself rationally, but your brain is doing lots of other stuff as well.
And I think that exact pattern is something that's like he really seems to understand why people believe or why they feel they have these experiences. You know, there's so much in the subconscious that just trapped away, and it seems to always just be waiting for the right convergence of factors to basically unlock that subconsciousness and reveal some sort of like transcendental horror just waiting on the other side in places where the regions of their mind wouldn't normally be able to unlock.
Yeah, I think we can poo-poo it, but it's very interesting to note why it's so powerful to us and explore it, as you said. Through whatever
I mean, I as a kid, you know, not so much now, but as a kid, I always, you ever have that thing or know someone where, as a kid, you're in bed and you've got your leg out the end of the bed and you feel the need to like pull your leg in because otherwise some wraith is going to come in the night and like grab your leg and take you out the bed. You know, all those little things as you grow up. And yeah, I had that definitely. And there's probably been one or two times where you thought you saw something. But no, I do remain an arch skeptic. But that doesn't stop me from enjoying these and really appreciating what he tried to do. And I think another thing as well is that even though for those who are entirely unfamiliar, despite the fact that it's called Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, not every monster / supernatural horror within the stories is actually a ghost.
No.
That he has a really nice diversity of like, you know, creature and their origins, and you know, it's wonderful to see because he was also deeply fascinated by history, wasn't he, James? And so you see that the folklore from all these different European countries and village superstitions come in.
Yes, it's stuff he was looking up and researching, and he was able to thread it into the story in a slightly different light. And you know, it comes at a very interesting time where he's sort of really warning against a sort of materialism and discarding of superstition. The most obvious case is A Warning to the Curious, which is not in this collection that we're talking about today, and has a lovely adaptation. But Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad, is in that territory as well. Sort of the ultra-skeptical person who nevertheless dabbles in something they shouldn't have, and although there's a lot going on with that story. But you talked about a sort of way that James lulls you into a sense of security and gets you on board with the tale. I thought that was maybe a really useful jumping off point for these stories.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Well, it just seems to be the fact that other than one or two stories where it might take place at a manor in Sweden or a hotel in Denmark, most of the stories, I like the way that he stages them in locations that many ordinary people could actually go themselves, right? Because it makes them more... I've got a quote here from him where he just says, part of the idea behind the stories is just that you read them and you think, if I'm not very careful, something of this kind could happen to me. And so you set them at a little English seaside town because, especially in the Victorian era, there was no Ryanair. People weren't going abroad, of course. If they went on holiday, they'd go to the seaside and an English seaside town. And so it's very accessible, and it's great how he brings these locations into it to create, this place that should be safe, that you just explore every day, and gives them this sinister twist.
Yeah, I'm very minded of Lovecraft and Stoker and Chambers to an extent. Would you do a similar thing of to make it more likely you could believe it, the place has to be familiar but not exactly familiar. It's got to be a little distant. Stoker will put his events on the edge of the world, where you think, well, I don't know exactly how it is out there. Maybe it does work like that over there. I'm going outside of my normal bounds here. So there's a bit of a risk. And James does this temporally as well. I think he has, if you can forgive a slight quotation from...
I encourage them.
No, I can't see it here, so I'll quote it from memory as best I can.
Sure.
So in a distance to the slight physical distance from where you would normally be, so moving you from your college to that seaside town, to that slightly remote area. He also wants to give you a minor temporal distance, but vague. He says a little vague distance helps. He contrasts himself with a detective story where you want to be as up-to-date as possible and see how the technology could be deployed. Whereas he wants a little vague distance. So he says some 30 years previously or just before the war. So you're vaguely there, but you can't pin it down. I think it's sort of almost warding you off trying to be a detective, but giving you enough points of verisimilitude by quoting things that are actually there to sort of get buy-in from you.
Yes.
It's very clever like that.
It is. Well, so shall we talk a little bit about the first story?
Please.
So we've got the first story, which was Canon Alberic's scrapbook, right? And this takes place, again, reasonably isolated little town in the south of France, I believe it was. And you have this, the main character of Denniston, great name. And he is an Englishman. He's, as many of the characters as say, share in mind, he's a rationalist, he's an educated man, and he's going about looking for old books.
Yes. Old and rare religious texts. So
Yes.
this is borderline James himself. The Cambridge academic heading on a research mission for medieval religious apocrypha. So it is his life.
I like, again, so much of the charm in these stories, and charm is exactly the right word, I think, is that it's the little details, right? He has such little details. Like, I think in more than one story, but in this one in particular, he points out the fact that he's so enthusiastic about collecting these books that he's gone ahead, and two of his friends are going to join him the next day. And so just that, it's not a necessary bit of information, but it just gives you this idea of, okay, well, what life-changing experience is going to happen to this poor man before his friends arrive the next day? And it sets him in isolation, but with this feeling that companionship, friendship is just on the horizon to come save him.
Yes, he's isolated himself. You can detect a period of brief vulnerability where he doesn't have his support, but also it's got that, forgive me for saying verisimilitude again, and this is a really good, I feel I'm being a bit crude and modern by saying technique, because when he's quite scornful of attempts to apply that formality to his writing, but I'll use technique. He brings in these just very nice casual details, making everything sound so conversational, and it really helps the picture of remembering that when people were hearing these, they were hearing them orated. They were just being told by a fireplace, so it should have that conversational style. It really suits how it was originally told, and just sort of helps lower the defense mechanisms. You're not thinking, oh, I don't believe all this supernatural guff. You're just hearing about a chap going on an expedition, and he's keeping it extremely casual, just like any friend would describe their work to you.
Yes. And he ends up meeting one of the locals, and the local takes him back to his house, and he has a daughter there as well. And it's a fantastic thing. One of the other things, just to say as well, is that because these are short stories, obviously it makes it all the more impressive how quickly James is able to assemble these incredible atmospheres. Right, like all of a sudden, like this world becomes so real within a matter of 2 pages. Just within a few paragraphs, he's set everything you need to know, and he does this consistently through every one of the stories. It's for my part, someone who likes to write lengthily. It's remarkable. It's aspirational to see someone be able to do that so quickly.
Oh, absolutely. And I think partially because he set himself that limit of, I've got to be able to tell this story to a group of people who don't want...
Before the brandy gets a little too deep, yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkable restraint and helps storytelling. As you're saying, he's recounting what he's seeing in the church. He's making notes there, drawn from a real life place he visited. And then he'll give you something like, I heard a laughing up in the belfry, and you're sort of, okay, hang on. And then he just moves on from it, and these little details are planted to slightly unsettle you.
And by the time he gets to the house, there's this moment where the Frenchman you can tell he's wavering on whether or not to actually let Denniston in.
Yes.
Right, there's this whole uncertainty, and it obviously creates this beautiful moment where you know that this man knows far more than Denniston knows. But Denniston is so tunnel-visioned about the fact that he's here on a mission and he's come to collect some old books. And so he goes in there and he finds this scrapbook from Canon Alberic. And this is probably also a relevant moment just to mention as well that there are a few illustrations in with this work, and he had them drawn by a friend of his. Was it James
McBride?
McBride, yes, James McBride, and James actually passed away very sadly, quite a young age, about 30, and therefore, rather than the publishers had said to him, well, we could get someone else. He says, no, I just want James's work and, stand out to a testament to it. And this is one of the stories that James McBride was able to draw a sketch for. And it is sinister. It is very, very good. It's also the description that goes with it. When I read this, it was wonderful. I do apologise, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little under the weather today, as you might tell. But it says, I entirely despair of conveying by any words the impression which this figure makes upon anyone who looks at it. I recollect once showing the photograph of the drawing to a lecturer on morphology, a person of, I was going to say, abnormally sane and unimaginative habits of mind. He absolutely refused to be alone for the rest of that evening, and he told me afterwards that for many nights he had not dared to put out his light before going to sleep. However, the main traits of the figure I can at least indicate. So he sees this this ghoul, this demonic figure, towards the end of the scrapbook, and he says, "At first you saw only a mass of coarse, matted black hair. Presently it was seen that this covered a body of fearful thinness, almost a skeleton, but with the muscles standing out like wires. The hands were of a dusky pallor, covered like the body with long, coarse hairs and hideously taloned. The eyes, touched in with a burning yellow, had intensely black pupils, and were fixed upon the throned king with a look of beast-like hate." I mean, it's just wonderful writing.
Yeah.
Really wonderful writing. And he... and it's all with reference to the fact that you have King Solomon of the Old Testament, and he has his scepter and he's pointing at these demons. And I believe Solomon seems to be a figure with aspects of the occult about him, because you have the Testament of Solomon where he has this magic ring, and he's basically able to harness the power of these demons to help him build a temple. And then you have the grimoire, don't you, of the Key of Solomon.
Yes.
So yeah,
you read of Solomon extensively in Kings and Chronicles, sort of both cover him, and he's gifted with this amazing wisdom and super relevant for James here in our sort of don't get too curious, or in fact a warning to the curious, we might call it. Solomon uses his wisdom to create great prosperity for his kingdom, and then gets a whole load of wives, and with the wives come the trouble. They worship foreign gods, and he doesn't make them renounce their religions and worship the Jewish God, but instead builds temples to their gods as well, and sort of gets a little foot in the occult that way.
Right.
And that's a bit of his downfall.
And so the other thing as well is that it is speculative, of course, and that's what so much of what makes these stories fantastic, is that because James never outright explains things to you, but gives you enough information for you to piece them together for yourself. It's wonderful because it makes your mind put it together yourself in a way that you would deem to be plausible.
If you enjoyed this piece of premium content from the Lotus Eaters, head to our website where you can find more.